Hey gamers, welcome to Game On, a gamers podcast. So this is the first episode of a project I've been wanting to do for quite some time now, called, obviously, Game On. So the idea came up from me wanting to find a good place to find news about games, what's going on, what's happening in the gaming world related to games, etc. Uh, as well as just a want to share some of my gaming experience with others slash stories. Um, so for this first episode, I'm going to introduce myself a little bit about to me, and to do so, I had some friends of mine ask questions, whether it was about me or about my content is irrelevant. Um, so let's just hop into some of those questions. The first one being, when did you start YouTube? Well, actually, we just celebrated the 1 year anniversary of my YouTube channel. I started on March 11th last year. Uh, when this gets a week ago on Wednesday, so March 11th. The next question would be, what inspired me to start YouTube? A couple different things actually. I've always liked games and gameplay and the story they brought and told, and I always enjoyed that and wanted to share my experiences with others. And I actually found out about YouTube at I think it was about 10, maybe 13 when I found out about it. But I found out uh, about a game specifically called Minecraft where you could build your own world, your own stories, and you could craft and use these resources from a YouTuber called Stampy Longnose. Actually, to me, it sounds really weird using his channel name because I've always called him Stamp Cat. Um, but I started off watching Stampy Cat. Me and my sister did. We'd stay up late occasionally and camp out in the living room and watch good old Stampy Cat. I think the first video we watched of his was uh, the quest to kill the Ender Dragon that Stampy and I Ballistic Squid did, uh, because it we didn't know what the Ender Dragon was, and so we went looking for, the End Dragon, all of that, to see what it was, and it was by Stampy Cat. So we're like, great, this is like exactly what we're looking for. Um, so just watching how well they told their own story that they wanted to, or when I started watching like iBallistic Squid, he played other games and always enjoyed watching uh, his reaction to this game compared to someone else's reaction to the same game. And I think that's what part of what makes storytelling so great is it's while it might be the same set of events, it's never the same reaction. So, uh, and that just really kind of pushed me towards wanting to be, that person who shares his reaction with someone else. So that's what inspired me to start YouTube, and I've actually enjoyed doing it quite a bit, even if I haven't gotten as many views as I want. I still know that even the people who do watch have come to watch for a reason. Um, and that's just really satisfying to know. So the next question, and this question I actually got quite a bit, was why did you pick the games that you picked to play. There are several other games that are just much more popular on YouTube. Um, like at one point, Fortnite was really popular on YouTube. Um, and part of that's there's two answers to that. The biggest part is equipment. I just don't have the equipment to do all the games I want to do. There are several games that I really, really, really want to do. I either don't have the system to record it, or the system to play it on, or the equipment to record it. Uh, but games like Spyro or Crash Bandicoot or Skyward Sword or uh, Ocarina of Time or Majora's Mask or Mario uh, or any of the Mario games. If you don't know, I'm a huge Nintendo buff, so most of the games I will want to play are Nintendo. There are a few other games that I want to play, like Spyro and Crash Bandicoot. Um, so the biggest one is I just don't have the equipment to do so. Uh, but yeah, I'm hoping that will change eventually. Uh, but it might take me much longer than I want to, as I'm at the end of my senior year and looking to go to college next year, and colleges cost a lot of money. So I might have to push on with these makeshift setups that I've been doing before looking into other equipment to record more games. But yeah, it's one I really I have thought a lot about it. I just haven't gotten there yet. Uh, so then the next question is, what is my favorite game? Now, I've thought long and hard about this because there are just so many great games. And normally I'd have to ask what series? Like what's my favorite game on the Zelda series, or just something like that. But when I limited myself to favorite game in general, one that I wouldn't get tired of playing over and over and over again, I came back to one game, and that would be Skyward Sword. I really enjoyed the story, the music, the graphics. Um, I would have been happier with a little better controls, but that's just because it's a Wii game. I always thought the Wii remotes didn't have great connectivity to the system with the Wii Motion Plus. Now that might just be me, but I always had a hard time with the controls because of the Wii Motion Plus. But I would have loved to have played it on like a different system. And actually, I hope that's one of the games that I'm really hoping for an HD remake. But I don't see it happening anytime soon. If it's already happened, I haven't heard about it. So, yeah. Now, this this one you might a lot of people might be wondering and asking the same question. Why Zegis? What's up with that name? Uh, to put it bluntly, I don't know. I have no method for picking it or even creating it or anything like that. I was talking with a friend of mine, a really good friend of mine, about names and starting to do. YouTube and all that, and we were looking for names, and my original name was uh, Link to ZJY. And, well, I think it has a nice ring to it. At some point, I started to question if it was a good name or not. Um, it just kind of seemed like a mouthful, and I just wasn't sure if it would sound as good in practice as it did in my head. And so I was going over a bunch of different names, and uh, one of them was I used to play Star Wars: The Old Republic when I had a Dell machine that ran Windows. But then I got a Mac, uh, and I don't have anything that runs Windows at the moment. That's a game I'd like to get back to, but I introduced this friend of mine to the Old Republic, SWTOR for any of those who like the abbreviated name, and she got really into it. And one of the games we've always enjoyed, because she's been much taller than me for a while now. I'm starting to catch up, but was Dr. Seuss's The Lorax. And so I was always mustache, just because I could grow facial hair. um, and so we were thinking of good names for one of my SWTOR characters, and she's like, you know what? Let's do Loraxian. I'm like, I actually really like that, and she meant it as a joke. And so then I'm sitting there going, I don't know, that sounds kind of cool. I think I could do that as a channel name, as a handle. So I went looking to see if there was any channel by that name. There wasn't, and then I'm like, great. One more thing I need to do, because I wanted my IGNs to match my channel name, right? So I went over to Minecraft and I put Loraxian in, and I got that dreaded red message. I'm sorry, but a player already has that name. And I was sitting there going, I was just so dumbfounded. How could someone else have come up with that name? It was like so bizarre. And I was like, I have no idea what to. I don't know how to move on from this. I have my heart set on that name, and I was like, well, great. I just. Oh, I don't know what to do now. I have no ideas. And so I slept on it. And then I'm like, I wanted to have a Z in it because Z's are cool. I like things with Z's. I think it's a really cool letter, which makes really cool names. So I was like, ZZ. I could do just, ZE, the literal spelling of Z. Actually, anyways, uh, I was like, no, I need something a little cooler than that. Uh, oh well, I'll figure it out. For some reason, my brain was like, gist, you know, like that's about the gist of it. To sum it up, I'm like, Z gist. Eh, let's cut the T off. Zegis. Yes, that'll work. That is like the best name ever. And and actually, I was half asleep when coming up with this. So I'm like, I don't know about this. It just it seems a little too weird, you know. It's not. I'm not sure it's going to quite work. And as I started thinking about it, and I was like, actually, it's kind of growing on me. There's no way someone's going to have come up with that name. So I hop onto Minecraft, put in Zegis, and there you have it. And so I was like, yep, okay, that's what I'm going to stick with. So that's how I came up with Zegis. Uh, so then when I first played a game, that was that's the next question. I don't actually remember how old I was when I first started playing games. I got this story from my parents. Um, but I'm guessing like 2, 3, somewhere around that age. Um, but the first game I ever played was Spyro the Dragon, and it was I was young enough to the point where I didn't actually play the game to like progress the story or anything like that. I just made him roll over and thought it was the greatest thing ever. Um, that's why I say 2 to 4. Um, but then like I remember playing other games as I got older to the point where I would actually try to progress the stories. And I don't remember how old I was when I started those. It was probably 5 to 7 when I actually started to try and progress the story, except for Ocarina of Time. I ended up I've got a fear of spiders, right? And so I'd never ever get past the first dungeon because of all the Skulltulas, because just giant spiders is just no, thank you. Do not want it. Especially giant spiders that are shaped like skulls. I mean, come on, what's freakier than that? So, I'd never actually progress the game. I'd just play my parents' files and play uh, from a later point in the game. I'd never actually progress it because I had no idea what was going on, but I just ran around and explored and tried things. Uh, Same thing with Majora's Mask, but for a different reason. I I just couldn't figure out what was going on. I didn't know what I needed to do when I did, and I liked playing with all the different transforming masks. So I'd play again my parents' file, who was much farther in the game than I was, just because they had more masks than I did, so I'd run around as like a Goron, just rolling over everything without really understanding what I was doing. Um, but then the first system I used or played on where I actually progressed the game and tried to finish it would be the SNES. And it was my grandmother's SNES. That was before I realized my parents had one that just wasn't hooked up. But I'd play games like Link to the Past with my cousin, or Mario, or and we have I say we have because we still have it. Um, a like All Stars package where it's Mario 1 through 3 Lost Levels, but then we also have one that's Mario 1 through 3 Lost Levels and Super Mario World. So I'd play those with my cousins, and we'd spend hours just playing and having fun. There were too many save files that we didn't actually remember which one was ours, so we just played a file, and oftentimes ended up deleting files multiple times because we just couldn't remember which one was ours, and we wanted a fresh start, so we'd start it all over again. Uh, But uh, the running joke for which Super Mario Bros. 3 uh, was to check your pockets. Actually, going back and thinking about it, I didn't realize what some of the items did, like the P wings. But we'd just always go, now make sure to check your pockets before starting a level. And so we'd always, uh, I forget, that's like what, X, Y? Y probably. And look at all the items we had in our pockets and just use one every now and then, but not really understanding what they did or why they worked. Um, but we always had a great time with those. And I'm actually excited because I'm currently doing a series on Link to the Past on the SNES. It's a very makeshift recording system, but and because I'm using my camera as my phone camera as the source, and so it's being like broadcasted to my computer. So there's problems with that. Like it doesn't always stream well, and so it hiccups occasionally. But then I'm also using a camera, my phone camera, to record a box TV. And so just because it's a box TV, the picture's not all that great. But if you can get past all that, I highly recommend the series. I've had a lot of fun with it so far. And just a quick warning, it probably isn't what you're expecting it to be. It's a much older form of game. Uh, but yeah, it's pretty great. We just finished the third dungeon uh, in the latest episode. So if you're interested, go check that out. Now, the last question I have for today is if I'm going to do any collabs with other YouTubers. This one also has a double sided answer. I kind of already have, and I'll explain that. Um, so I've played in some of my older series, I've done, or older videos, I've played with Nate, also known as Baseball Tech, and Storm Chaser. Uh, and they both have their own channels. Nate's not very active on his, and I'm not don't show up any of his videos. So whereas he shows up in a bunch of mine. So it's not like you can go watch my perspective and then go watch his perspective. But I might actually have to talk to him about doing that for a game of Bed Wars because that might be a lot of fun to do. Um, where and then same with Storm Chaser. I'm not in any of his videos, but he's in a couple of mine, and we've actually talked about recording together, and I think we did, but I'm not sure if that ever got posted to his channel because it was one of the days where I wasn't planning on recording, and we just ended up talking about stuff, and I think we recorded it, but I don't think he ever put it up on his channel. I'll probably have to ask him about that uh, and see what happened to that footage. But then the other answer is I would like to. I think it would be cool to do collabs. I don't know if I should say regularly, but with maybe not regularly, but with people who where I was saying where you could go do it like you watch my perspective and then you can go watch his perspective. I think that would be a really cool project to do, and I might have to see if I can work something out with someone one of these days. Sit down, take some time to sit down and record. The other problem is like if it's Minecraft, there's no easy way of doing like an adventure map with someone. Since the realm is being used for a survival world. So there's no easy way of doing like have a server where we can go, okay, let's load up this adventure map and do it. It just there's no easy way of doing it at the moment. But like with other games where it might be uh uh Mario Brothers and we're going to do 2 players, I'd actually have to have him here to do that. So it there's a lot of logistics to figure it out. If I can find someone who's willing to do one with me and take that time to do so, yes, I would love to do that. Um, so that's it for all the questions. I hope you found out a little bit about me. Uh, if we've gone through all those questions and you still don't know who I am, uh, I don't know what to say for you. Um, so then now moving on to the other side of this, uh, where it's more like gaming news. I went through and picked out a couple different articles that I think would be really cool to talk about, at least since they're relatively current. So if you're a fan of Final Fantasy, you'll be interested in this one. In the Final Fantasy VII Remake, Red 13 won't be a playable character. Now, I've never played any Final Fantasy games, but the idea of them have sounded interesting to me, and I want to. Again, I just don't have the system to do so. And being having an outside view of it, having never seen Red 13 before until like just now when I was looking stuff for this video, he looks pretty cool. And I'm kind of disappointed that he isn't a playable character. But when looking at the reasoning, I understand it. I'm still disappointed that he's not having even without having ever played a Final Fantasy game ever. Um, I really like the graphics for the remake, and I think it looks amazing. What little I have seen of it, but the reasoning for excluding Red 13 as a playable character is he just gets introduced so late in the game that the developers didn't feel like it was like adequate enough to try and explain all of his move sets and tutorials for specifically for his character. And I mean, okay, that makes sense to me. But am I disappointed? Yes, I think he looks amazing. I think he'd be a really cool character to play, especially with the newer graphics. Um, so yeah, it's a bit of a bummer, but I understand their reasoning for it. So this next one, I'm excited for. I can't wait to see what they do with this. but Miyamoto trusts uh, Chris, one of the lead people at Illumination, to do a CGI Super Mario movie coming around like 2022. And yeah, you heard me right. A Mario movie, and not like that live action one. That live action one's kind of like the uh, computer Zelda games equivalent. I forget. I don't even know uh, what they were called, but I heard from what I've seen and heard, they were horrible, and not a lot of people like the live action Mario movies. I say movies. There was only one. Even though they seemed like they set it up for a sequel, my guess is it just didn't do well enough to actually have a sequel. Uh, so having that that to bounce back from, I wasn't sure that they'd ever do another Mario movie, but with like Illumination's track record, I think they do a really good job with it. Illumination did all the Despicable Me movies. Uh, Actually, I'm not sure what else they did. Those are like the first things that come to my mind is Despicable Me and Minions. So to and it's very interesting because Miyamoto said that he finally realized that he could trust Chris with Mario when Chris started talking about some of his mistakes. And in the article I read, it he couldn't disclose what those mistakes were, but it's kind of interesting to see how people will go, okay, I kind of trust this guy if he's, willing to admit his faults. And it gives me hope because one of the things that, uh, especially Zelda fans, have been wanting for quite some time is a Legends of Zelda movie. Now, you can do a lot of different graphics with CGI. I think they could do a really cool Legends of Zelda movie. Um, so we'll have to wait and see how well this Mario movie does in like 2022, maybe 2024, depending on when the project actually starts. Uh, but if it does well, let's hope for a Legends of Zelda movie. I think they do really well with it. Uh, this next one is interesting. The Hyrule Historia is getting a digital release coming April 14th. Let's see. Okay. So, actually, I'm pre recording this to be put out on the 18th. So, having said that, it will come out this Saturday, time of recording. So, it probably won't be as informational as you were looking for. I might put this up uh, Friday, uh, March 13th. Let me mute that. Um, I'm receiving a couple texts, and it's coming through my headset. Um, but it's interesting because all the other books, Arts and Artifacts, and Creating a Champion, and I think there's one more, but I don't remember the title currently. All had a digital edition and as well as a physical copy. Um, whereas the Hyrule Historia is just now getting its digital copy, and of course you can get it on all of the big big name booksellers, Amazon, Apple Books, and of course Google Play. The digital edition is going to be $20 cheaper than the physical edition. As of currently, the digital will stand at $19.99, whereas the physical stands at $39.99. And while it might be cool to have a digital edition, this might be just my preference. I would prefer to have a hard copy, a physical copy. I think it would be cool. Um, I actually want a hard copy of all the books, actually. Just haven't gotten around to getting one. So if you're not as interested in a physical copy and want a copy wherever you go, the digital edition's probably the thing for you. Um, Hyrule Historia goes into details about across all the games, with as well as uh, art records, like concept designs, stuff like that, as well as hinting at connections between different games. And actually, Hyrule Historia has been one of the key sources for many Zelda theorists, and that's especially seen on YouTube with like Zeltic and Nintendo Black Crisis. They often refer back to the Hyrule Historia, or in some cases build their whole theory off of it. So it's, from what I've seen, read, and heard, the Hyrule Historia is a great book full of details for major Zelda fans. Um, I wouldn't recommend personally. I wouldn't recommend it if you're like, I want to figure out what the Zelda series is all about. So I might get the I'd get the Hyrule Historia. I don't recommend that, for a couple different reasons. If you want to find out what a series is all about, especially the Zelda series, play any of their games. Any one of them. Even if it's like 15 minutes at a friend's house. Or I think you'd get a better experience by playing a game. You could also find out what they're like by watching like a let's play, a tutorial, a walkthrough, whatever, on YouTube. But my first recommendation for finding out what the Zelda series is about is by playing a game. The Hyrule Historia is kind of add-on, like concept design, um, how everything interacts with the Zelda timeline. Uh, but now if you're like, I I don't really play the Zelda series, but I like the idea of it and I want to take a look at the concept design, go ahead. I'm not telling you what you should or shouldn't do. This is just my preference. Um, but yeah, the one I'm looking forward to. Well, let me I just say the book I'm looking at getting the most is Art and Artifact. It's talking about the graphics and the design and like concept art and images of items and uh, land, uh, and stuff like that. So that out of the three, that's the one I want. Creating a champion's more geared towards Breath of the Wild specifically. So yeah, that's all I have for today. If you want to figure out where you can go to, or not where you can go, obviously. Where you can go is my channel. If you want to watch more of my content, see a little bit more about what I've been talking about, go and check out some of my gameplays. Uh, I highly recommend my Advancement Hunter, even though the series has ended. It's the first series I did and some of the earliest videos I did. So there's a major difference. So maybe don't start with that one, as it's not my current best impression of the channel. Uh, if you want something quick, I recently did a couple quick Hypixel mini games that I highly recommend you check out. That's going to be a little different because I'm on with Nate and John, so it's not just me talking. um, but one of the things I wanted to do was, if you have questions or want to hear my opinion about certain topics, leave it in the comments and I'll get to it for the next series. Not next series. That would be way too far in advance, down the road. In the next episode. Uh, so yeah, without further ado, thank you for listening. If you've made it this far, I don't know if this concept appeals to you, or if you can really call this a podcast. But I figured I'm going to. There's no video. It's completely just listening to me blabbing. So, yeah, we're going to call it a podcast. So yeah, if you liked, leave a like. Uh, Comment, questions, opinions, all that in the comments. I've always liked reading your comments, and I'll try and write back as soon as possible. And subscribe if you haven't already. That will allow you to be notified when the next episode comes out. Thank you. Have a good